Today I'm going to show you how to level your cakes in the easiest way possible before stacking and decorating your cakes so you have a clean, smooth edge to work with. This is actually super simple to do, and all you need is a serrated knife and a ruler to do this. There are so many different gadgets on the market now to actually help you level your cakes as well. There's this one by Wilton, which can only do up to a 10-inch cake, but this one you have to be super careful with because the wire in the middle is not very sturdy, and if you tend to go back and forth with your hand while you're sawing through your cake, you might create little waves in your cake and it won't be as leveled as you hoped. There's also this one by Wilton, which can do cakes that are a little bit higher than 10 inches. I don't really like this one at all because the saw in the middle here is actually really flimsy, and when you actually level out your cake, it doesn't come out level at all because your hand is moving all over the place. So I don't really use this one. If you're doing a bigger cake, I would suggest to stick with the knife. Some people are concerned as well about leveling your cakes and cutting off so much of the cake. I always keep a bowl beside me so that I can put the cake in it. You do not have to waste your cake. Your cake is perfectly edible. Feed it to your friends and family. Don't waste it. If you do have extra, you can get creative and actually make little mug cakes, or you can wrap them up in plastic and foil if you want to, put them in the freezer and save them to make cake pops for later. You do not need to throw it out. It's perfectly good cake. I eat it all the time. So I have two 7-inch cakes here. I have one vanilla and one chocolate. And you just have to keep your bowl over here so that when you cut off the tops, you have something to put it into. I actually froze my cakes so that they're a little bit more sturdy. So you freeze them for overnight if you can and take them out about an hour before you need to use them. Then you turn it over, you take off the parchment paper. I'm using 2 cakes here to make a 4-layer cake. But if you're only making a 2-layer cake, it doesn't really matter the actual measurements of your cake. But if you are making 4 layers, I suggest actually measuring out the height of each layer so that your cake looks even when you cut into it. This also goes if you're making a 2-tier cake. If you want your cakes to be the same height, measure out your layers so that both cakes end up looking symmetrical once they're on top of each other. When I make my cakes, I use a 3-inch pan, so each layer is a little bit taller. Mine come out to a little bit higher than a 2-inch cake. If your pan is 2 inches, your cake will be a little bit shorter than that. So it's up to you if you want to make multiple cakes and then just cut the domes off of each one as your layers. Depending on your recipe, some cakes will be made with a dome, some cakes will be made with a dip. So you just have to be very careful that when you measure your cakes, you're cutting off all of that so it's completely straight and that both of your cakes are measured at the same height. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually score my cake all the way around the cake at 2 inches high without cutting into it exactly and just making little indents so I know where to cut. Then you take your serrated knife, hold it really straight against your cake, and just go and connect all the dots while going around the cake and turning your Lazy Susan little by little. All of your lines should match up if you're holding your knife as straight as possible. Once your lines meet up, you want to actually continue going around the cake, pushing in a little bit more each time. Don't be tempted to go all the way through the cake. Just keep spinning and go through a little bit at a time, and eventually your knife will come out on the other end. Okay, and then your dome will come off just like that. And you have a perfectly smooth top right there. And there you go. Now you can just put your dome over here into your bowl. And now you have a perfectly smooth edge, just like that. So now to cut this cake into 2 layers, we're going to do the exact same thing we did to cut off the dome of the cake. We're going to mark it where it says 1 inch, go all the way around the cake, join your line together, and then cut through the cake, slowly going around the cake. I like to keep the bottom of my cake as is because it serves as the bottom and the top of the cake. I don't like to cut this because then it makes less crumbs for the top of the cake and you have a smoother edge. If this cake has multiple layers and it's a really high cake, for the layers in between, I will cut off the golden part at the bottom, just a very thin slice so that you don't see it when you actually cut through your cake. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use the Wilton leveler. I would not recommend using a Lazy Susan for this because it can get rather unsturdy, and you need a Lazy Susan that will actually fit the length of your leveler. Mine actually does, but I feel like most people will not have it, and it's a little bit not sturdy, so I won't be using that. So I'll just show you how to do it on the actual table. I'm going to keep my parchment paper on for this part just so that it's easy to turn. If you want your chocolate cake to be the same measurements as your vanilla cake, you want to make sure that their measurements are the exact same. I made these two cakes 1 inch high, so I would do the same thing for this one. So I would take my leveler and actually measure at what slot it actually is 2 inches. So this would be 5 notches down. So I would push in this little thing here and go all the way up to 5 notches down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. So what I would do is cut through, start from the side. Make sure you hold your level as perfectly straight as you can. Do not wobble from side to side. When you're sawing through, cut exactly straight up and down all the way through your cake. So we start from this side and just start sawing, going right through your cake. Depending on how frozen your cake is, this might be a little bit more difficult. So you hold your cake down, go from side to side, and just keep going. Okay, once your saw is a quarter of the way through, then you can start to turn your cake so that it's a little bit easier to cut through. Keep your saw going straight up and down and just turn your cake to help it go through. And eventually your saw will come out right the other end and you will have a leveled cake. So now we do the exact same thing to cut this cake in half with our leveler. So we measure it again at the 1 inch mark. So that would be at the 3rd notch. You go down, you make sure that it's lined up. You start going straight up and down. Hold your cake down. You can see already that the wire is bending here. That's why it's not the best method. Once your saw is about a quarter of the way through, you can slowly begin to turn your cake while continuing to saw straight up and down. Depending on how dense your cake is here, this might be easier or harder. And now you have 2 perfectly leveled cakes. So now you can put this over here. And you can take off the parchment. Again, I do not remove this beautiful bottom here because you can actually use that for the top of the cake so that you'll have a nice smooth edge. Okay, so now you have 4 perfectly leveled cakes and you can stack them up just like this. Remember when you're actually putting your cake together to flip the bottom. And there you have your cake. Another quick thing that I do is to take a small little leveler. You can get this from your local hardware store, Home Depot or Lowe's or even Walmart. And just put it on your cake just like that. And you can check to see if your cake is level. And if your little bubble here is in the middle between the 2 black lines, then your cake is leveled. So you can turn it, see if it's level on the other side. And that's it for leveling your cakes. Of course, the next steps are to fill this cake, give it a crumb coat, and then ice your cake, and then decorate it however you like. It's really that simple. If you like this video and you want to see more tutorials like this, please let me know in the comments below and give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, you can do so right over here. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!